Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast. This is the second in the series of a couple of, or three podcasts we are creating off of material that Kathy and I have shared in recent conferences. So we're back feeling and looking to be a little sleepy. Well, not Kathy, just me. But back speaking at conferences, and a lot of the stuff we talked to, it occurred to us that we spent a lot of time preparing for these meetings. And a lot of the stuff we covered, even though it may have been about mental health or may have been about addiction or senior living, applies to a wide variety of our listeners and readers. So today we're going to cover a topic that Kathy discovered, the Mental Health Marketing Conference, right, Kathy?
Yep, that's correct.
This was Kathy's show. She'll be doing most of the talking today. And the topic is talking about patient experience and mental health broadly. We're going to be talking about the opportunities with mental health marketing and the challenges with mental health marketing. And just as an opening, things have come a long way since Kathy began this. Back in the old days, several decades ago, Kathy and I used to lead seminars around the country and go, okay, psychologists, MFCC, LCSW, psychiatrists, you kind of know who was who in their own when we were working at the mental health group. And, back then it was all private practice, all very small. People would pay money to come see us speak, and then tell us all weekend long that it's unethical to market. That was always confusing to me, Kathy. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But today mental health has come a long way. It's big business. The acceptance in the public is big. My kid spoke to a therapist today about a hassle she's having with one of her roommates. Not personally seeing a therapist, though my kids wish I would. I think it's much broader in acceptance today. And Kathy's going to share some personal story about herself as well. So we'll be talking about marketing. We'll talk about mental health. But even if you're not in a mental health business, these concepts will probably apply to your business in a big way. So Kathy, I'd love you to introduce Kathy Gaughran. I've worked with her for a long time. She's our senior strategist here at Healthcare Success. Kathy, I'd love you to just introduce yourself and then share your presentation from from the Mental Health Conference. And I'll interject some color commentary as I see fit.
Thank you, Stuart. So as Stuart said, my name's Kathy Gaughran. I've been a strategist working alongside Stuart for a couple of decades. We've been very fortunate to be able to apply our passion around marketing and healthcare and help a lot of people over the years. There's been a larger emphasis in the mental and behavioral health space in the past 5-8 years, and I'm thrilled to be able to pay it forward. I've been in recovery for a couple of decades myself. I'm also a patient in mental health. And one of the things that I talked about at this last conference, we were just in Franklin, Tennessee at the Mental Health Marketing Conference, was the fact that I had been searching for a therapist for over a year and a half. I've got great insurance. I'm in the Southern California market. There's lots of provisions available for me, but I just can't find that connection. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, how to be visible for searches that are already happening, how to make sure your unique value proposition comes to the surface when you have an opportunity with someone looking for a solution, and the really critical parts on optimizing your online visibility and your online campaigns. So we're going to be talking about all that today and sharing a little bit of our stories. I'm just thrilled that mental health has come as far as it has in terms of acceptance. Stuart shared, a little bit about his family. When I was younger, I also have a bipolar diagnosis. My mom used to just refer to me as hyper. So a lot of changes have happened, and I'm thrilled that we have opportunities to treat our mental health issues and to be able to provide that for more people now. So it's an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Kathy. Personally, I had anxiety as a kid. I didn't tell her that to a soul until I was probably 40.
Right. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that people suffer in silence. And whether there's a SUD issue present, one of the interesting things that I found at a recent conference was that a lot of mental health providers are seeing patients with mental health primary and SUD historic. So it's not even present anymore, but it's present in their history. So regardless of how a patient manifests to you, it's just important that we appear as a viable solution, accessible with our arms open wide, and that we're fit for them. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to position your practice, your messaging, and be available for the patients that are already in your market looking for solutions now. So I wanted to talk first a little bit about trends. 90% of the public think there is a mental health crisis in the United States today. So we have gained acceptance not only in treatment, but also in conversation and dialogue. Half the young adults and 1/3 of all adults report that they have felt anxious. 1/3 of respondents could not get the mental health care services they need for whatever reason. When asked about specific barriers to accessing care, 80% cited cost, and more than 60%, just as Stuart said, cited shame and stigma as main obstacles. And this is something that I love, again, to be able to participate in. I lose a lot of friends. I've seen a lot of people lose their lives in addiction because of shame, trying to hide the fact that they were struggling, and it ultimately ended in their demise. We know in addiction, the only outcomes are hospitals, institutions, and death. And mental health is tied up in a big way. So it's important that we are recognizing the crazy demand that's out there and setting ourselves up to be visible and accessible to these people when they're searching. The shortage of mental health providers is also prohibitive, with 60% of psychologists reporting no openings for new patients. And also, we're finding that a lot of our mental health groups, their recruitment is as important as their patient targeting. So one of the things I was telling Stuart about, my daughter was just visiting last weekend, and she just finished her master's in psychology up in Northern California and just found a job. And she was describing to me her job search and how she went about it. And it's very unique to what I'm used to what a lot of other vertical healthcare industries see. So I'll be doing a podcast on that later on, just really understanding how to target this demographic and position yourselves as the best place to work. So we'll look at that later on. There's a growing acceptance of understanding. There's also a rising interest in alternative therapies such as mindfulness, meditation, and yoga. We're also seeing a much bigger adoption in teletherapy, with advancements really stemming from COVID. Many people are also opting for online therapy. Another trend is the integration of mental health services into primary care settings. So that's also something which could provide you an opportunity to cross-network with primary care providers, or look to more difficult cases that they could then refer out to you. So it could be a positive, it could be a competitive factor in your market, depending on how you work it. Additional trends that I was able to identify: AI in clinical care in a variety of different capacities. Psychedelics as medicine, very controversial. Some people are seeing great success. Other people are not wanting to be early adopters. So we'll continue to see that grow in this space. Trauma-informed care, blood tests for mental health, setting boundaries on social media, very important. Social media, because selecting a mental health provider is an emotional journey, social media is a good complement to your campaign because of the high visual content and the ability to connect on that level. So it's a good complement to paid search. Sometimes it can stand alone, but it's got to be a really tight campaign. We have a fantastic social team that can help determine the best strategy and content to push. And then TMS obviously is huge. TMS provides a program. One of the challenges with any repetitive visits, we see this in mental health as well as physical therapy, where you're giving a treatment recommendation, you diagnose and recommend a course of action, and patients don't comply with the total visits that were recommended. They fall off during care. So one of the great things about TMS is it's got a start and a finish. So it gives them a little bit more of a mental reason to complete treatment with subsequently more visits. So there's been a big push on TMS recently. So we look at the healthcare decision journey, and things have changed drastically, obviously. There used to be very few media resources to choose from. We were typically looking at word of mouth, personal experience, physician referral, friends and family, maybe the Yellow Pages directory, preliminary online. But now it's completely different. We've got online information, reviews. We've got opportunities to be able to push on a variety of different platforms. So it's important that you understand your market, you understand what they're looking at, what they're reading, how they get their information, so we can be visible and available when they conduct their searches. Stuart, do you have any comments on this slide?
No, but it's so much more complex. I mean, back in the old days, in fact, that advertising bubble in the old days was almost non-existent. You and I, helped create this sort of world of thinking about mental health as a business, along with others, of course. But, we were really groundbreaking back when we would advertise for, mental health services. We were lucky to get our therapist just to ask their patient to refer them to somebody. So it's just come so far that, it's just kind of shocking, really, how far.
And it's hand in hand with the market's acceptance, which is fantastic. So it means more people will get the healthcare that they need. They're also passing insurance. There's a couple new rules. I know that there was one that the NAPI website, just the NATAP, about healthcare coverage in the mental health care space. So there's gaining acceptance. There's gaining acceptance, again, just in conversation, which is just fantastic. And some of that is our celebrities coming out and having higher visibility, and just people being more comfortable talking about their mental health. So finding a provider, 8 out of 10 times the internet is where the first encounter between a prospective patient and clinical provider occurs, but it does not stop there. Long before they decide on a healthcare provider, they search the internet. And we know that people are looking at content, they're looking at your website, they're looking at reviews. The trouble is the entire process is increasingly complex. They don't follow the traditional path from consideration to purchase, and this purchase is far more emotional. So we're looking at a more detailed funnel. We're looking at first awareness, creating market awareness. We know that there is gaining acceptance. We know that there's awareness of mental health in the markets that you serve, most likely. What other competitors are out there? What messaging has been available to the consumers in that market? So what is the perception of their personal need and the opportunity to find a solution? Consideration, which is the start of that information search, evaluation, and education, and familiar with the options that are available. Intent, that's when the choice narrows, and often the final decision starts to happen. The purchase is your first transaction, either an encounter or an appointment. Loyalty is on your back end, presuming a positive and satisfactory patient experience. They can then be bonded to that provider. That makes them much more likely to return and much more likely to refer. So the post-purchase behavior can include references, recommendations, and if you have an alumni program, referrals and word of mouth. So it's an entire journey where they can then become your advocate. So the decision-making process, the added complexity by the Social Health Institute, comparing the then and now, also mental and physical quadrants. The mental considerations have grown from 3 basic items of personal experience, advertising, hearing from the brand, and word of mouth. Also includes now online information, WebMD, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit. Rankings and ratings can be found in a variety of platforms. Patient reviews also representing those ratings. And then also online patient communities. This picture is often more complex. When you add to the list the provider's own internet presence, his own history, if they were to search any individual provider or clinician by name, YouTube blogs, plus there's organic search results. So there's a heightened level of complexity just finding a provider, and then all of that additional information that's available on that provider or on your brand. I also thought these were interesting observations on the demographics. We've got a much larger female demographic, almost 60% to male. And then we've got that bell curve of the 25 to 34 and 35 to 44 representing the largest percentage of the audience. We want to get in front of decisions that are happening in your market now. So making sure that you're optimized across all of your pull marketing, which is where people will find you. So we talk about push marketing and pull marketing. Pull marketing is being visible when people are searching. They're pulling information down based upon a search query or a decision-making process that they're engaged in. Push marketing is pushing your information at a likely candidate, either by using lookalike audiences or targeting. So your messaging is going to be different between push and pull, but you want to optimize your pull before you really start to push. So looking at all of the different platforms that consumers have access to and messages that they're seeing throughout this journey. And keep in mind, telehealth platforms, over-the-counter solutions, there's a lot of people vying for the solution for this patient. So important that your unique value proposition and that connectivity really shines in your campaigns. Stuart, any comments on this one?
I just think that we talk about a lot where there's so many points of entry. The consumer is much more guided. You and I talked about in another recent webinar about consumers are making their own decisions now. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. So think about, with mental health, if you're a practitioner, or even just in the business, the idea of patients feeling empowered is something that's a good thing, right? Well, that, serves in business too, because people are empowered whether you give it to them or not when it comes to choosing a provider. So all these different things that athletes have been discussing, and if you're watching the video version of this, you can see on the chart right now, but, ratings and traditional media and online media and search results and all these things really matter. And of course, once they come on board, they're still not done. There's going to have interactions with you, interactions with your institution, hopefully get follow-up from you. So it's just much more complex, more expensive, more cluttered, but there's just so much more demand and acceptance as well. So overall, it's maybe a little more challenging. Well, it is more challenging competitive-wise because before there were no competitors, but the market has just exploded. And that's why you see so much interest. And, Kathy and I work with private equity and speak at private equity conferences fairly often. This is probably the hot sector, mental health, including mental health, addiction, eating disorder, autism, telehealth, adolescent and teen health. Like all of these things are just hot commodities, not just from the business standpoint, but because there's a growing acceptance, clearly.
Right. And you also have residential programming, IOP, PHP. So there's a variety of different ways that they can get care as well. So a lot of decisions for someone that's addressing their mental health. That's the point. And that's the struggle and the frustration I always find myself in. It's just there's an overwhelming amount of choices. And it's hard to make a decision when there are too many choices. It goes back to the factor of choice, Stuart. All right. So 4 vital optimizations required for digital marketing success. Stuart actually wrote this blog several years ago, and it's just a fantastic way of looking at all of the different areas of optimization when you're running paid search. You've got consumer demand, making sure that there's demand in the market that you're marketing in, campaign management, landing page, and your conversion process all equal optimal results. So all of these things rely on each other for the greatest outcome. And we're going to walk through each step. And then I have a final slide at the end with some recommendations for some additional trends.
Kathy, can I just add a quick comment on that? Just the big picture, then you can drill down. So the point we make here is that these things are all equally important and the results are multiplicative, meaning that if you can increase the effectiveness of 10% at any level, out the back end pops 10%. So if you can increase demand with traditional advertising and social media by 10%, and you increase the effectiveness of in the machine with Google ads, for example, by 10%.
I have a slide, Stuart.
I'm sorry. All right, then jump in.
That's okay. But that slide is for you. So we'll come back to that.
All right.
So again, most people tend to focus on only one of 4 variables. They're looking at the demand in the market, which miraculously will come through their door, campaign management, landing page, or the conversion process. So true optimization considers all 4. So let's take paid search because it generates results quickly. This is always a go-to for most people when they're looking to drive volume. It drives a low cost per acquisition and allows for real-time testing, and it scales incredibly well. So Google Ads often form the bedrock of most digital marketing campaigns. Yet too often we see the clients focusing just on the machine and the campaign management. But in reality, more than the campaign management is needed to directly influence the consumer demand, inquiry rate, or patient conversion. As Stuart said, to truly maximize your digital campaigns, each factor must build upon the other to compound campaign effectiveness. We're going to lead up to what Stuart was digging into. So looking at consumer demand, before you can start building and optimizing your digital campaign, you need to determine overall consumer demand in your market. What drives demand? Consumer knowledge of your product or service, cost, desire, competition, habits, and expectations. So you need to understand how many people are searching for the solution you're offering and how they're searching for it. At the same time, while consumer demand can seem largely out of your control, remember that we can always push the lever of push marketing and programmatic advertising to stimulate demand. Then you look at campaign management. So the management is a crucial part of any successful paid search campaign. It allows you to oversee every aspect and make real-time adjustments and maximize your ROI and your ROAS. So that's your return on investment and your return on ad spend. Following are key elements of PPC. You must keep eyes on all of these for optimal campaign management. And that's the keyword research and targeting, negative keyword research, ad positioning, geographical targeting, device targeting, scheduling, deciding when and where to run your ads, budgeting and bidding strategy, quality score, and then making sure you've got A/B testing. Hiring an expert to manage your paid search campaigns is always a good investment. It's not something you want to try to wing on your own. So definitely get somebody that's got experience in healthcare and especially mental health care, because it's a very different approach, especially to anything retail, but even within the healthcare sector, mental health and behavioral health are a different animal. And then we looked at our landing pages. Stuart, do you want to speak to this slide? I know this is one of your favorites.
Yeah, of course. Well, so landing pages are, with our team and our clients, I should say, people sort of get the idea that there's demand. They get there's an idea of our tech team working inside the Google Ads platform or Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and they get that there's technical things and there's a million variables, and it's all kind of like turning the switches of this great big soundboard to work in the machine. And then most people don't even give the landing page a second thought. And the landing page could be a specific standalone landing page. It could be just the page you're driving traffic to on a website. But this is a huge lever that most people underestimate. So they can spend months and years trying to leverage that the Google Ads campaign in the machine. But the page is hugely important. So what is the headline? Does it have a benefit? Is there an offer? Is the copy compelling? Social proof to make people comfortable. Are the visuals rather relevant? Are the CTAs there? Does the page download quickly? Is there support copy? What's the strategy of the page? I mean, these differences aren't little differences. These differences can be, 20%, 100%, 300%. So the difference between a bad landing page, for example, and one that works can be utter failure versus a runaway success, with everything else being equal. So it's really, really important. It's not just about being pretty, by the way, too. It's really approaching that page with absolute strategy and thoughtfulness.
Well, and you want both. You want the attractiveness to attract people to the page, but you want the page to work. So very critical to have all these elements.
And you can optimize it, right? So if it really, when it's doing well, you're optimizing continually inside the machine and the landing page as well.
Right. Thank you. Then we look at the conversion process. And Stuart and I, as we've talked, have been in this industry for so many years. And this tends to be a really weak link. We do have calls that are inquiries that are coming in online. We have a variety of different ways that inquiries are coming in. But now that you've stimulated demand, driven consumers to a value-added landing page via targeted paid search ad, and persuaded them to click, call, or fill out a form, how were the inquiries handled? Look at your practice like an upside-down pyramid, balancing on the end of the finger of the person answering your phone. They are ultimately going to be responsible for the conversion of this lead. When potential patients navigate to and take action on your landing page, they intend to make a purchase. Optimize each and every opportunity. So a few ways to increase call conversions: decide where the call should be handled, either a call center,
identify and
or at
train
your
personnel
local office.
specifically to
Identify
convert
and train personnel
sales calls,
specifically
because
to
inquiry
convert
calls that are coming
sales
in off of
calls, because
online
inquiry
advertising are
calls
going to
that
be a
coming
little
in
bit
off of
different
your
than a
online
referred caller,
advertising are going to be a
and
little bit
not always
different
to
than
the
a
liking
referred
of your
caller.
phone staff. So
And
it's really
not always to
important
the
they
liking of
understand
your
the
phone
benefit
staff.
of
So
that
it's really
caller,
important they understand
that call is
the
going to be a
benefit
little
of
bit
that
different than
caller,
what they're used to.
that call is going to be a little
Use
bit
a
different than what
CRM,
they're
a
used
client
to.
relationship management
Use a
tool,
CRM, a
HubSpot,
client relationship
Salesforce, to be able
management
to
tool,
close,
HubSpot, Salesforce,
manage.
to be
It
able
helps with
to
attribution.
close,
And then we'll
manage. It
also
helps
help with your sales team
attribution.
if you have any
And then
B2B
we'll
effort
also help with your
happening.
sales team if you
Create
have
a
any B2B
process for
efforts happening.
logging, tracking,
Create
responding
a
to
process
every
for
inquiry
logging, tracking,
quickly.
and
Timing
responding
is
to every
everything.
inquiry
When people are in a
quickly. Timing is
decision-making
everything.
mode,
When
you want
people
to
are
try
in a
to capture them within
decision-making
that time
mode,
period. And
you want to
Stuart's
try to
always been such
capture
a
them
stickler
within
about
that time
this.
period. And
If
Stuart's
we
always
move
been
on to
such a
something
stickler about
different,
this.
this
If we move
need,
on to
this
something
desire,
different, this
tend
need, this
to
desire,
be minimized. So we want to
tends
catch
to
people while
be
they're in a
minimized. So we
decision-making
want to
mode. So it's
catch
really
people
important
while
that you
they're
get back
in
to
a
them quickly.
decision-making mode. So it's really
And
important
then
that you
create
get
a
back to
call
them
script
quickly.
that outlines
And
for
then
your
create a
staff
call
how to
script that
address frequently
outlines
asked
for your
questions.
staff how to
Don't
address
expect your staff
frequently
to
asked
get
questions.
each and every time
Don't
a call
expect your
comes in,
staff
especially
to
with
get each and every
shopper
time a call
calls.
comes in,
How to
especially
overcome
with
common
shopper
objections,
calls.
whether it's
How
pricing,
to overcome
insurance,
common
location,
objections, whether it's
provider,
pricing, insurance,
and how to win more
location,
appointments. So
provider,
make sure you
and
train
how
your
to win more
staff or
appointments. So make sure
familiarize
you
your
train
staff
your staff
with
or
the importance of these
familiarize your
calls.
staff
They're the
with
backbone to
the
the success
importance
of the
of these calls.
campaign.
They're the backbone
Even
to
if
the
they're
success
handling
of the
inquiries
campaign.
coming in online, it's
Even if they're
important that those
handling
inquiries are
inquiries
handled
coming in
quickly. If
online,
you've got
it's
a
important
portal
that
that those inquiries are coming
handled
through,
quickly. If you've got a
also
portal
that's
that those
addressed
inquiries are
quickly.
coming through,
So it's
also
important to
that's addressed
close up
quickly.
the
So it's
consumer
important to
journey
close up
with an
this
appointment. That's their
consumer
intent.
journey
They're
with
reaching
an
out to you
appointment.
because
That's
they
their
have a
intent.
problem that you have
They're
a
reaching
solution.
out to you because they
So
have a
if they
problem
do
that you
not
have a solution
convert,
for. So if
their
they do
problem
not
wasn't
convert,
solved, so they may be just
their
moving
problem
on to a
wasn't
competitor.
solved, so they may
So
be just
important
moving on
also
to
to
a
have a
competitor.
follow-up
So
protocol
important also
to
to
be
have
able
a
to reach
follow-up
back out if they
protocol
allow it.
to
And I
be
know
able to
mental health
reach
is
back
far more
out if they
sensitive, but
allow
the
it.
issue
And I
is
know
this
mental health
person
is
still
far
doesn't
more
have a
sensitive,
solution
but
to a
the issue
problem
is this
if
person
they've
still
left
doesn't have
without
a solution
scheduling
to
that
a problem
appointment.
if
So
they've
we've
left
created
without
the need,
scheduling
we
that
found the
appointment.
demand,
So
created
we've
the
created the
need,
need, we found the
answered their
demand,
questions, and got
created the
them to
need,
call. Now it's
answered their
really
questions,
critical
and got them
that
to
this call is
Now
handled the way that it
really
should be.
critical
And
that
we,
this call is
we've got
handled the
actually
way
a
that it
couple
should
of
be.
webinars on our
We've got
website
actually a
about
couple of
phone
webinars
protocols
on
and
our
phone
website
shoppers.
about phone
If there's
protocols
any
and
issues in your
phone
practice, I
shoppers.
encourage you to
If
listen to
there's
that
any issues
webinar
in
because
your
there's some
practice,
great
I encourage
information
you
in
to
there
listen to that
to
webinar
just make
because
sure
there's some
that
great
you're
information in there
closing this
to
cycle
just make sure that
that
you're
helps this
closing this
consumer
cycle
find a
that
solution to the
helps
problem.
this consumer find a
And then
solution to the
Stuart, your
problem they have.
multiplicative effect.
And then
So you want to
Stuart,
read
your
us this slide?
multiplicative effect.
Okay,
So
now that I
you
stepped
wanna
on your
read us
lines,
this
okay.
slide?
There you go.
Okay,
No
now that I
problem.
stepped on your
You got
lines,
it in.
okay.
There you
Yeah,
go, no
so
problem.
to
You
kind of
got
come
it
back
in.
to what I was, this is the part that I'm passionate about, and just as a review, going back to the consumer demand is largely fixed, right? You can't really change consumer demand. You think, but then you can. So with paid social advertising and traditional advertising, which by the way, is not bad. I was just looking at some data today, and the many millions of dollars spent in leading markets on traditional media for healthcare, it's not dead.
No.
So the consumer demand is can be, marketing can influence that. Going back to the end of campaign and the machine part I described a little while ago, that's a thing, the landing page and the conversion process. So again, what I was saying a little bit ago was increase each of these factors, the first three, by 10%, on a compounding rate, that's roughly 32% increase. But then let's say that conversion process is a zero, everything is still a zero. You can double, triple all those things above it, but if that conversion process is a zero, guess what? It's still a zero. So that multiplicative effect works for compounding when things are going well, but it also works in a negative way. For example, Kathy and I worked with an addiction business, a treatment center, respected one, in the Carolinas, and their entire business just tanked when their one finance person, with quotes, quit because she wasn't just a finance person. She had the charisma, the empathy, the understanding. She recognized that her job wasn't just about finance. Her job was to help convert the patients, and she just did it naturally. And they struggled and struggled and struggled because when that person left, there was no systems in place. I've been thinking a lot during this call about how much these systems matter. Like when you're little, you can rely on all-stars, but all-stars don't scale. And so that's a real problem. If you have all your eggs in a couple people basket and you've got trying to grow a business, that is a very scary place to be. So just recognize that, using another metaphor, because this is the thing we see over and over and over again, to the point where, Kathy and I rock in the corner sometimes, exhausted. But the conversion process is so bad, and it's just, I don't know, disheartening. Because we do all this work and all this money and all this time to get that phone to ring, and the calls come in to the online, and then nobody calls them back. And it's like, no. And then nobody calls them back.
One of the challenges, I think, with that too, you just sort of talk openly about it, is that if they're not answering the phones in a way that's going to allow them to convert these callers, the suggestion to do that is calling them out as not doing their job or well. So it's a really sensitive approach with your staff, because you're essentially telling them you have to do things better. They might be fantastic at their job. So it's just the way that I have recommended is to suggest that you call it a phone protocol. Never call it a script, but a phone protocol that you think is going to help us convert shopper calls better, and help us grow in the direction we want to. But that's really a challenge. And Stuart and I've seen that over and over and over again. We saw a huge orthopedic group that they were able to identify that they'd lost $500,000 the year prior, but they would not make change with the staff because this woman, Dolores, had been there for 20 years and nobody wanted to rock her boat. So we get it. But we just want to really stress the importance of that first engagement. I want that person to sound like they get me. I want them to sound like this practice is the best place to go. And that can be achieved. It's just a matter of getting them in the right rhythm and really making sure that they understand that these calls are a priority. If that communication doesn't happen, they tend to think shopper calls are so it's critical they understand the value of the shopper call.
I do want to point out too, the model matters a lot. So different businesses, like Kathy mentioned, the call centers, which she may be talking about more in a minute. But the model of the business, the way you set this up, the way you train, the way you scale is really important. Like the idea of, are we going to just, if you have 100 locations, let 100 locations freelance how they do this? That's a problem, right? That's really not a consistent brand message or experience. And then the other part of it is, today with telehealth, part of it is to talk to a therapist for free or very low cost to establish a relationship. So now you're not talking about, an administrative person, but the therapist is not ever a salesperson. That wouldn't be ethical either, but to at least understand the principles so they can engage with patients faster and better and more effectively. So within the realms of being ethical, recognize that each of these businesses, whether it's telehealth, residential treatment, or other kinds of models, or whoever's doing this and how it's done, you still have to think about these things. Like, what is the right way to engage the patient? How do we engage them in a way that's ethical but effective too?
One more slide. So 13 essentials of behavioral healthcare marketing. I did some research on this and I thought this was a good go-to list to finalize on. Events to build the community, social media to build awareness, blogging to inform readers, direct mail to reach them at home, search engine optimization to gain visibility, Google My Business profiles to bring local traffic, sponsor events to reinforce brand recognition, email marketing to nurture relationship, website to convert, EPC to get results, rep management to build trust, networking to foster relationships and partnership, and empower your sales team, whatever that looks like, whether it's your internal team answering the phone, whether you have liaisons out in the market, stimulating business from referring. When patients decide to do business with you, when they decide to become a patient, that is doing business. That's an exchange of commerce. So that's a close. And that should never also be looked at as a negative because they need to ignite and they need to get started somehow. So it's important that you build a plan and a strategy, and then make sure that you're touching and firing on all pointed opportunities to get that visibility out there so that you're in front of the searches that are happening happening
out there so
right
that you're
now.
in front of the searches
We know the demand is big and it's increasing.
We know the demand is big.
We know that we're gaining increased on healthcare insurance coverage for mental health and addiction. So the market is headed in the right direction. We just want to help you optimize that visibility so you can beat competition and close so you can reach your KPI.
Great job, Kathy. Thank you for sharing. If you guys are interested in reaching out to Kathy, just give her a call. Or better yet, just email her at Kathy@healthcaresuccess. You can look us up online at healthcaresuccess.com. If you're not already there from this podcast, we have a wealth of resources for you. So thank you.
Thanks so much. That was fun.